everyone. You are listening to the Rachael Maves Podcast, and I'm Rachael Maves, your host. This podcast is part of the lead up to the upcoming Measure What We Value Summit, scheduled for February 5th through 6th, 2025 in Fresno, California. The summit emphasizes honoring and amplifying student voices, fostering inclusive classrooms, and equipping educators with tools for impactful change. You can find more information on the summit at parsecsummit.com. Today we are speaking with Mary Cochran. Mary is a recognized leader in educational assessment and the founder of Metamer LLC, where she helps schools, districts, and state departments of education transform their assessment practices to better serve students and educators. With over 19 years of experience spanning classroom teaching, district leadership, and state-level assessment roles, Dr. Cochran brings a unique blend of expertise, practicality, and vision to the conversation around data and student growth. Her compassionate assessment framework emphasizes a people-centered, data-driven approach to measuring learning, one that moves beyond the traditional testing approaches to create actionable insights and meaningful outcomes. Mary, thank you for joining me today, and happy birthday.
Thank you.
I feel honored that you would give up time to share it with me.
Well, it's my pleasure, Rachel, and I'm just so excited about all the work that you and that Eugene and Babatunde have been doing at the Parsec. That this is a pleasure to spend some time with you today. So,
yeah, I know we're education and assessment nerds when we're excited about these conversations, and it fills our buckets.
So true, so true. Yeah.
So we're going to start off the way that we always do on the podcast and just give you an opportunity to share a little bit about your journey, what led you to your current role, why education, why assessments.
Yeah, so there's no little girl out there that says someday I'll build tests. And that held true for me too. Actually, I wasn't on a pathway to go into education. I finished a degree in cultural anthropology at Fresno State and kind of looked around, and my mom, who was a teacher and administrator in Fresno Unified at the time, said, "What are you going to do with that?" I didn't have a very good answer, to be honest. So she said, "Hey, come, I think you should be a teacher." And I wasn't too convinced, but I listened to her, and thankfully I did. And my first teaching experience was being a substitute in her 7th grade world history class.
Oh, my word.
Oh, Rachel, I was so...
It's either go really well or really bad.
Right. Well, yeah, that's either going to make or break a whole career path. I was hooked. Absolutely hooked. I loved working with junior high kids, and shortly thereafter, I found myself in my own 7th grade world history class by no accident. I just, junior high kids are wonderful because they're a beautiful expression of humanity, because every day is a new day. Problems are big, problems are little problems are big. Today they're best friends, the next day they're mortal enemies. They're still little kids, but they're in that push-pull, self-actualization, and they're just so much fun. And so I loved that. And through my work there, I've always really just followed, though, the short answer to your question of what was my path. I've just followed the really interesting work. Things that just made me feel alive and felt like I could be giving through the gift of my efforts and service and my talents to try to do something to make the place around me, that wherever I found myself, a better place when I leave. And so I had a wonderful opportunity to go from, I had worked at junior high, got to teach at my high school alma mater, which was a wonderful experience. And then I was kind of on this track to becoming an administrator, and I got a call from Dave Calhoun. And for people who know that name, know how wonderful a man this is. He just didn't achieve a lifetime achievement award from the work that he's done with Fresno Unified and CORE, and so he called me and said, "Hey, we got this job. I'd love to have you come down to work with us in the research, evaluation, and assessment office." And so I went and worked in REA, and that was my first taste of assessment. I was excited about the evaluation and the research part, always been super nerdy. And I found myself right at the beginnings of trying to unpack these new standards we had at the time, Common Core. So I'm totally dating myself right here. And just fell in love with the process of how do we make those invisible cognitive processes and these ideas that happen in these kids' heads, how do we make that visible, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So that ended up, I kind of continued in, deeper and deeper into this assessment world, ended up going to Portland Public Schools in Oregon, which is the largest school district in the state of Oregon. I ran the statewide assessments there. During the height, I found myself in really fun places, Rachel. It was the height of the anti-testing movement in that community. And I came in mid-year and it was, where the early taste of politicizing education. And so that was really trial by fire. But what saved me was, and what really helped me get through all of that was that I knew what the tools were designed to do. And so all of the other kind of misinformation and things that were floating around coming from all directions, I just held through to, held course, right? And held true to what they were designed to do, what we were intending and how we were going to use it, and then what the options that parents and teachers had. And it was all about just sharing information with clarity. I often say clarity is kindness, but and that the work I did there got the attention of the department, the State Department, Oregon. And so I've kind of been pulled along my career path a lot of ways. So they tapped me and said, hey, we need a director of assessment at the state. And with what you've done, we'd love to have you here. So then I got to see a whole nother level of education, as you have, right?
Yeah. And it really is. It's a whole different lens and viewpoint and perspective that I don't know what your experience was like, that I wasn't anticipating, but it was also like, oh, so many other things make sense now.
So true.
Yeah.
So true.
Yeah.
Every level comes with its own perspective and priority.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
And they're all valuable. That's the other thing. It's not that one is more valuable than the other. They all have a role and they work together.
That's right.
I try to express it because when I moved from classroom to like school level, right? That was one shift.
Yeah.
School to district level, that was another shift. You experienced that as well, I know. And and I don't know if you experienced this as well. I was kind of going to the dark side every time I made these jumps, like.
Yeah. And now the private sector, that was when I hear it the most, like, welcome to the dark side.
I have heard it every way. Went from the State Department into a nonprofit private sector, like, welcome to the dark side. Was a part of a merger and acquisition that went from nonprofit to for-profit. Hey, here's some more. And all the while working in assessment, which honestly, there were years I didn't tell people when I traveled, and you'd sit in an airplane. Oh, hello. Oh, what do you do? Educational research. Honestly, it wasn't something I shared freely because I wasn't always prepared to have the conversations. And I have to say that that's been a huge growth for me in my own just kind of personal experience of owning being an assessment professional and taking on those conversations and seeing every single opportunity as a way to share information that is too valuable. Everyone needs to have, parents, teachers, school level, everyone needs to have this information. I've spent, over a decade of really being deep in assessment. So anyway, yeah, that's kind of that's really how I've progressed. There wasn't a pathway. I've also taken a lot of positions because I've been drawn to the really interesting work and exciting work. And I get to work with you guys now. Or when I was in Portland Public Schools, I got to work with like Rick Stiggins.
That's amazing.
I was just like this fangirl in the front row of this classroom. watching one of my research idols, and I was just like, oh, I get to touch him, But
You're not going to.
no, I did not. No, I did not. But being able to work with him and Jim Popham and Martha Thurlow and working with states, and then working with a lot of states when I went to American Institutes for Research in assessment, and worked with states from the vendor side, and then a state, and with them I got to see how similar and how unique every state is.
Wow. Yeah.
And it's just wonderful, wonderful people all around. And then I get to, meet my idols once in a while. And, like Christina Schneider and Dan Lewis and Kristen Huff and all these really nerdy idols I have. But taking all of that about 2 years ago, it was COVID that was the big eye opener for me. Not that it changed things so much as it amplified and accelerated change that was already happening.
Yeah.
And I became a stepmom in 2020.
Oh, congratulations.
Thanks. Yeah. And so that really shifted my world. And watching what the kids were experiencing firsthand in a new way during this time of, the state departments were paralyzed in a lot of ways, and the districts the schools and districts were kind of floundering, and it's time for me to work with schools and districts again, and that's why I established Metamer to work with schools and districts again, to bring all of this knowledge about assessment to the schools and districts so that they can really put it into place and put assessment back into its place.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That. Yeah.
So that's kind of how my journey progressed. That was a little over 2 years ago. I've been doing a lot of writing, and I'll be coming out with my book on a compassionate assessment framework, which is really a culmination of my career and work up to this point, and my understanding of how do we take all of this really dry statistical ideas and concepts like, item response theory and that aren't necessarily explained well to practitioners. And I think that's our responsibility as assessment professionals, as I do count myself one now. Finally, I own it.
That's awesome. Good for you. And you should. I mean, it is a place that, it's not going away. As we know from No Child Left Behind, there are a lot of flaws in assessments, 100%. And I think we would all acknowledge that. But it was also the first time that it shined light on things that really gave us insight at the local, but then also at the state level where we were, truly failing kids.
Yes.
And so I see the importance and the necessity of progression, which is why I'm so excited for the lens that you're bringing, Mary. And I'd love for you kind of touched on a little bit, but tell us a little bit about your keynote, because your session, you're going to be coming and you're going to be talking about humanizing measurement through the compassionate assessment framework and how this approach can transform the way we assess learning better to reflect students' experiences and growth. So can you just give us a really quick high-level overview of what that conversation will look like?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a big proponent of I don't tell about teaching, I do. So I do very interactive kinds of experiences. Any kind of presentation is as interactive as I can make it. So the first step really is to make sure that we're all having the same conversation. And so we'll go through and commonize our information, our language use, particularly around the word assessment.
Yeah.
And then move into the 4 components that make up the framework. And when we attend to all 4 of these components with really high leverage activities, then we move toward what I call compassionate assessment, because we can't. It's really about, and these words were selected with purpose. Compassion is beyond sympathy. It's beyond empathy. It's really to a point where you see something that you have to take action on.
Mm.
And I think that's where we're at. We have to take action and shift how we're doing and engaging in assessing student learning. and how we use the results that come from that. So we'll dive deep into the 4 components. One is technical quality. We have to have that basic knowledge and understanding of how things are made. The second component is the environment, and that also includes like technology and why we see these strange kinds of artificial environmental decisions, right, when large scale, and why the environment matters in our classroom assessment and how we get what we get from the kids. So it's not just about big tests. I'm talking about assessment as a process.
Yeah.
Now, that would be all well and good, and that's usually where a lot of assessment literacy ends. But it's not good enough for me. We got to talk about the people.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what I mean by humanizing it. So if we attend to the attitudes and beliefs of the adults around assessment, and that's your teachers, your administrators, your school leaders, anyone working with the kids, paraprofessionals, right? All of the folks and the parents and families, because all of that is going to influence the fourth. Yes, the student attitudes and beliefs. And that's the fourth and final component. Although I will tell you, I kind of go the other direction. I start with the student. I move into like the attitudes and beliefs of the adults. And then what does that do to that environment that is surrounding our kiddos? And then what are those tools actually designed to do? And what are their limitations? So that now we can say, okay, I see this landscape. What are the high leverage activities you can go into your classroom, into your school, into your district, whatever role you're in? And where are the areas when I organize it in these 4 buckets, what can I do? What actions can I take to shift toward that compassion and the compassion assessment? I think we can make it. I really think we can do it.
I do too. But I think it's going to require exactly what we're seeing, conversations and engagement with all of the people. It's just such a core component. So knowing our audience, Mary, and that it's going to be made up of school leaders, practitioners, can you give us like one tangible takeaway that they might be able to apply to their context? Not giving it all away, but just like maybe one little thing.
Can I give you more than one?
Sure.
Okay, well, one, I've already alluded to it. It's a shift in mindset. Assessment is a process. It's not just a bunch of tests or just datas or ranking or, it's not numbers. It's a process of gathering information about where the student is in learning progressions. So now we need to talk about learning progressions, right? It's a way to communicate to kids where they are in their own goals. Okay, now we got to talk about goal setting. Totally different conversation, right? So it's really a shift in mindset that assessment is a larger process of gathering information about student progress and learning, not just a bunch of tests.
Yeah,
that's the first thing. The second thing is that understand that they're tools.
That's right.
And when we talk again about tests, now I'm talking about performance tasks that you build in your classroom and you write your own rubric to the large scale test events that you have at the end of the year, every state across the nation, right? They're all tools and no one tool can do it all. So know what it can do and know what it can't do.
Yeah, that's right.
And then last though, I really have to share, so I was working with a group of teachers last week, and I came in with, okay, we're gonna look at this data. We're gonna talk about how you're gonna goal set with your kids, and this kind of mid-year check-in and where they want to be, and this is what we're gonna be doing. And really quickly, totally tossed my lesson plans out the door because I saw a brand new teacher who was in his first year and just drowning, and so. And I said to him, we would talk through what is his greatest like challenge right now. How do we help you? How do we rally around you? We've all been here, but it really came down to he wasn't alone. Yeah. And that's the last thing I'd like to share with your listeners is that you're not alone in struggling with trying to make sense of the information that's getting thrown at you, whether it's quantitative, whether it's your observations, whether it's the teachers coming and telling you things as a school leader that you get told in the hallway. You can't even go to the bathroom without some new piece of data being thrown at you, with or without context, that you're not alone, and that there's so many people, every level I have worked with, every organization I've worked with, there are so many really passionate, smart, and gifted people that are all wanting the best for our students. And I think we just need to stop fighting with each other and work together, because we're not alone. You've been in these situations, I've been in these situations, and there's a new day ahead for me where I'm going to have to reach out for help and call and support from my colleagues. I'm not alone either, but just remember that. And I think it's hard to remember that sometimes mid-year, if it can be very lonely in your own little four-wall classroom. Right. It can be lonely in your office and as a leader, but you're not alone. So those are the things, the big takeaways. And I hope that also sheds some light on kind of how I look at things.
I love it. So as you think about like joining us at the summit and community, what are you most looking forward to?
I'm so excited. I'm just excited to be there too. Like, I mean, yes, share information and whatnot, but I'm excited to be a part of the conversations. Too often we measure what's easy and not what's important.
That's right. Yeah.
And so I'm looking forward to bringing people together that recognize that and having meaningful conversations of, okay, then what can we do that can make it more doable and less daunting?
Yeah.
To appropriately measure the things that are important. And then we have real data to stand on. Like, let's get there. Like, that's why I'm super excited about the summit.
That's awesome. Well, we're so excited that you're going to be joining us and having these conversations. I mean, these really important conversations from multiple lenses and viewpoints as we talk through what does the future look like. As we wrap up, I'd love to give you the final word for our listeners. Any sage advice, thoughts to ponder? What would you like to leave us with?
Hey, it's not about more testing. It's about doing assessment better. And so, and that's what I want to help people do. That's the mission I'm on. And so, yeah, I'm just thrilled to be able to share that with you and to talk with you too, Rachel, and looking forward to the summit in February and welcoming people to my hometown. I've lived in 3 different states. I've worked across the country, and I'm super excited to welcome people here and have them experience the best food in the country.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I look forward to meeting you in person, Mary, and being able to connect and bend your ear a little bit more when we come together in February. Thank you for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Parsec Education is hosting the Measure What We Value Summit on February 5th through 6th in Fresno, California. Join us for impactful conversations on empathy, engagement, hard truths, and more alongside leaders like Shaka Booker, Jamila Dugan, Dr. Mary Cochran, and student speakers like Liliana Sanchez and Timmy Lori. Tickets are limited, so make sure to secure your spot today. Get your tickets at parsecsummit.com.